2025, Cameron Parish Police Jury to discuss the CO2 injection and just talk about it a little.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, for in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Everybody fill out a green card on the rest of the jury and hopefully we may have to put a 3-minute time limit if get too many, but we'll work on that. Jonathan?
Well, we call this meeting today because we're getting a lot of interest in this from the public. And we've issued and discussed these permits numerous times since 2021, excuse me. And we saw no problem. We were assured that it was safe. So now that we have new questions and new worries, fears, we want to address those fears before this permit happens. We didn't do this at our regular meeting because it's going to be time consuming. It could be time consuming. And our regular meeting's already long enough as it is. So we wanted to give the people that we represent, the opportunity to speak and to ask their questions, to get their answers if we can. If we can't get the answers, we're going to be recording them today and asking them of the LEDEN or whatever it's called now. And we're going to get those questions answered for you. So with that said, if somebody wants to get up and speak and discuss this, is there any questions about sequestration that, is everybody here knowledgeable about what's going to take, what's going to do, what's going to happen? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and go right into the speakers. I know Mr. Rowland's here from the Allen Parish. I asked him to come to address us and let us know what their fears are so that we're on the same page as what everybody else is hearing. So. And as far as limiting with 5 to 3 minutes, I don't know, it depends on how good the communication's going.
Just starting to take some back with Nichols.
Thank y'all. Seems like yesterday I was just standing here just to provide information. I just want to clear the air. I'm y'all's neighbor to the north, but I've been in Cameron Parish all my life, hunting, fishing, helping everybody recover from Hurricane Rita. And, you know, I do feel like y'all are my neighbors, and I just want to clear the air on that right away. I think this some of the, you know, miscommunications, I guess, between my opponents and me, I'll call them that, is with this, we're talking about CO2 disposal sites. I think that's where the confusion comes in. I'm not here to suggest that anyone to do this or not do this in Cameron Parish. I will tell you that I think it's high risk. And I think there's a lot of dangers that's not being talked about. And it's not, this is not enhanced oil recovery. You've never seen me in any meeting in my life in Baton Rouge Tuesday, one of the legislatures actually had the common decency to point that out to the state of Louisiana. And I've never seen this man gripe about oil and gas. And he was against, he's for this, he was against our bills that we introduced. He said he's never griped about oil and gas. He's never griped about, you know, natural gas pipelines. And I have, and I won't. As a matter of fact, if we can all get together and build a natural gas plant and lower our electric bills in Southwest Louisiana, I'll be in the front of the line, folks, because my kids can barely pay their bills right now. You don't want to book our electric. And our bills went up with the coal shortage, up $800-900 a month. So we have way more in common than we have, disagreements. And I just want to clear the air on that. But here's where we're at Vernon Parish. 95% of the people don't want the disposal site. And if we could have had these discussions up front and not done all this, in a clandestine and a secretive manner and talked about, the risk and hazards of building a CO2 pipeline, 500 feet from our communities or our schools and manage those risks and talk about all those things and these injection sites. I call them hazardous disposal sites because that's what they are. Once you capture CO2 and compress it, and I mentioned some of this to y'all last time, I'm in the refrigeration business. I have been all my life on the side. I do that when I'm resting, so I can pay my electric bill too, just like everybody else. But, this is, when you compress that stuff and you put it at, let's say, 2,000, 2,200 PSI, any of us that's ever worked in the shop or knows anything about compressed gases, you're creating a hazardous situation. So it's unresponsible to argue those kinds of things by industry. I will say that. And it really had me mad Tuesday. All these lobbyists in Baton Rouge, that frustrated me, y'all, because they feel like they're more important than we are. And they demonstrated that in front of the whole state. And that needs to change, y'all, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not here, I'm not here to be anti-industry. That's not why I'm here. Y'all heard that. But this business, if we can do this safe, we've never done it before. Okay, we've never done this. With enhanced oil recovery, you have a hole that you inject CO2 in and it pushes the oil out. It has a relief hole. Okay, with this stuff, there's no relief. The relief is under my house. The relief point is under our schools. We're talking about 100 million metric. So you can't get any answers. They don't come with a plan. They don't show you where the plume's going to be. They don't tell you how. You have to try to figure all this out on your own. Even though you're asking, how much we talking about? Where's it going to go? Is the plume going to go 5 miles? Is it going to go 10 miles? What's the pressures? And guys, I'm working with drillers. I'm working with people in the industry who does this to help minimize corrosion. This stuff is very, very corrosive. It's all they can do every day to manage this stuff for corrosion. It takes everything they got. It costs a lot of money to manage the CO2 from a corrosion standpoint. And you can go to the PHMSA site and verify all these incidents from pipelines. Pipelines are inherently dangerous. And I'll close on this, about how dangerous these storage sites can be. The best we can compare that we have is the natural gas to methane storage sites. Aliso Canyon on California blew out the storage site. And I don't know how it took forever for them to kill it. There's several other sites in the United States that blew out and they caught on fire, which would normally be a horrible thing, right? Nobody got killed, fortunately, that I know of. But there's been places where natural gas has fallen in the ground and blew people's businesses up, blew people's homes up. I'm not talking about from the supply line either. If you hear that, that's not true. It leaked through the ground for 9 miles. Okay, so I think industry needs to come clean. Talking about clean fuel, there's no such thing as clean fuel. We burnt gas coming down here. It's not clean. We're all guilty. We burnt CO2 driving down here today, all of us. And like I told you when I was here before, my wife says if I shut up, it'd be a lot less CO2 in the air. Okay, you know what I'm saying, folks? We're all guilty. We're going to have to transition at some point. So to pretend that this is not, and I said at some point, I know it's going to take years. We got hydrogen. I'm not against the hydrogen industry. I'm against you pumping your CO2 under my property. That's what I'm against. And to suggest that it matters what someone in Europe, if they're going to get cheap fuel prices or they want low carbon prices, whatever you want to call it, over our citizens and our country, that's globalist thinking. Okay? Are we going to get cheap fuel prices? Have you heard those conversations because of it? When you start saying stuff like that, you lose me because that's globalist thinking, folks. And I don't want those risks for someone in Europe. With that, though, thank y'all very much. And like I say, I'm not here to tell Cameron Pierce, but I think there was some confusion last time for someone who's for this. And he even spoke about that he don't want to harm us. Well, if you don't want to harm us, We all need to get together and you need to get this out of our parish. But thank y'all very much. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. Sir, if you don't mind, I got a question. I've been trying to educate myself, and by far I'm not a subject matter expert on this. But you mentioned that it's hazardous going down. What is the difference? Sounds like you got a little bit of oil and gas back there. What's the difference in your thoughts of CO2 versus a typical saltwater disposal well or, or hazardous?
That's a reasonable question. I thought the same thing. I've been all in the literature and thinking about it, doing the injection wells. CO2 it forms carbonic acid. It's very, very corrosive. And then you have it's not a pure stream. They're saying if you get carbon dioxide from the Jackson Dome in Jackson, Mississippi, it's roughly 98% carbon dioxide. When you capture carbon from the industry, there's other things in there. It's not a pure stream of carbon dioxide. You got hydrogen sulfide, you got sulfur dioxide, you got nitrogen. And by the way, all that affects the ability to do this, to even do CO2, and you're not hearing about that. But my main concern is the pressures and the amount, the quantities. When you talk about 200 million metric tons or 250 million metric tons of that going wherever, getting in fault lines, mixing with the water and forming carbonic acid. Carbonic acid eats everything over time. It eats concrete. The folks in the industry that I talked to, I asked them point blank, I said, what's it gonna take, guys, to make stainless steel? They can name you the thickness. They've done this. They did it 5 years, enhanced oil recovery. They dealt with corrosion. And I'm talking about people who owns mom and pop operations in Texas, who owns oil and gas companies, how corrosive this stuff is. So it'll keep eating. It's gonna eat the concrete. It's gonna eat the pipe. The one they had up in Decatur, Illinois, the Showcase project leaked twice, and the company hid it. Okay, that's common knowledge. And they hid it from the town council. They hid it from the city council. And what happened? It was corrosive. It ate the test well. Okay, it ate the test well. It ate the monitoring equipment. Not a peep. Not until it ate the second well. But then EPA stepped in and put them in violation. With those folks, that water in the Muhammad Aquifer supplies water for 1 million people, just like our Chico Aquifer does for Southwest. We don't have that many people, and I'm thankful for that. I do want us to stay somewhat kind of rural, hopefully, if we can. I know progress is progress, and sometimes you can't stop that. But it ate through all that equipment, ate through the pipe, and those senators up there in Illinois just voted, I think it was 55-0 or 56-0 to prohibit, ban CO2 injection, not under the aquifer, near the aquifer. Because those folks, they've already been through this. And that's what I'm afraid of. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with our sole source strength? We're going to destroy our economy.
What did you say? Where was this located?
Decatur, Illinois, just the APM site. They've already had 2 leaks that an EPA put them out of compliance. And the sad part about that, we know things are gonna leak. Those discussions are foolish too. We know we're gonna have, with gas pipelines, we're gonna have deaths, we're gonna have fatalities. Right now, CO2 pipelines in the United States is only 0.25% of the natural gas pipelines. They have 4 incidents a year. They've had 9 incidents in 1 year. So to suggest that it never leaks and it ain't gonna happen that's very, very, that could be very harmful to the people you do this for, our communities, because where I live, we don't have a response. We're dead. In the sense that we're dead. It's no response. We have a rural fire department and, we all just struggle to keep it going. And we don't have equipment because first of all, CO2 kills your combustion engines. And in Mississippi, where it leaked from enhanced oil recovery now, not storage, enhanced oil recovery. We need to keep our storage straight because a lot of people get confused about that. We've been doing storage for 40, no, you haven't. No, you have not. You've been doing enhanced oil recovery for 40 years. It's a lot less pressure. It's a lot less CO2 and it mixes with the oil. It dilutes. So you don't have the solid pocket of CO2. So that's misleading. And I'm asking the industry today to quit saying that, because they said it in Baton Rouge. They confused the citizens of Louisiana, and it's not a factual statement. They got up there and said, we've never had any incidents. They don't have. That's not true. We had one in Delhi, Louisiana. It's on record. I can prove it to y'all, the state of Louisiana. I have their quotations about how long it took 8 or 9 months to clean it up, the damage. Fortunately, it was in a rural location. Now, did y'all hear me say that? I want to kill as less people as possible. That's why I said it's not fortunate to me, and probably to some of y'all, because we live in a rural location, right? We probably say, well, that ain't too fortunate. But the one in Mississippi, the reason I want to tell y'all that story, same thing happened. Enhanced oil recovery blew out. It killed the deer. And listen to this, I know y'all gonna laugh, but it killed armadillos. And my friends laugh too, so it's okay. I know this is no laughing matter. Because I'm a biologist by trade. And they're like, well, Mike, why are you worried about the armadillos? And I said, well, think about it. If you're in a fire and there's smoke, what do you do? You go to the ground, right? You got a chance, right? You ain't got no chance with CO2 leak. Kill the armadillos. That's how it hooks the ground. You're not getting away from it. You can't escape. And we need to think about all this. That's all I'm asking people. I'm like, I asked the legislature too. I said, guys, we just need some relief. I mean, you're doing all this, you're forcing this on us, and you tell us we can't have a say in where you put the pipelines, and we can't have a say in where you put these injection sites and where the plume goes. What about our school? You know, I just don't think that's right, y'all. And I'll close in this unless there's some more questions. I know this is a strong statement, but I think that's globalist thinking, and I think it's un-American. I'll say about property rights and eminent domain, and we can do this, no man. We had some good discussions, y'all, Matt and Rich, though, about that. About let's be a little more respectful of that. So hopefully that catches on. But does that answer your question? And compared to the saltwater, why I think they're more dangerous than.
When did your battle on this?
I've been battling this since 2005, and let me clarify that. When that Supreme Court ruling of Kelo versus New London ruled against the landowners, okay? They ruled against the citizens. It was in a subdivision. They bulldozed those people's homes for a government thing, just like this, with taxpayers' money, and it was a total failure. And, so you could argue that, well, it was eminent domain for private gain is what you call that. When a corporation can step in and take our tax dollars and use it for something, just like what's being proposed now. This is our tax dollars, the 45Q funds this. So they came in and did this. In 2006, Louisiana passed legislation. We all voted on it. We voted 55-45 to protect our state against this very thing. We said, we're not going to allow this kind of nonsense in Louisiana. But and a lot of 20 states did. They passed legislation. When I look where we're at today, we got a situation where we voted. The voters already spoke. In our parishes, we voted. I didn't look at camera, but I know in Vernon and Woolgar, we voted 65-35 because we want to protect we want to have a say so. I mean, local governments, local people, it just makes common sense, y'all. Well, the legislature during COVID, they passed legislation against our votes. And our Constitution clearly says in Louisiana that if you're going to determine a public use outside of our federal Constitution, that a judge has to decide whether that's a public use or not. CO2 injection disposal sites are not a public use. What is the public benefit of putting 200 million metric tons under our property? What is the public benefit of that? All I'm saying, folks, for right now, until we can figure out a better way to deal with it, let it go into the air like we've been doing. I asked the legislature this, I said, how on earth did we make it this far? Y'all talking about how great all this is. How did we get to this point if it's so great? We've managed. Y'all, I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but we'll manage without injecting it under people's communities. We'll do okay. And I believe that because if I thought this was good, I've dedicated my whole life to protecting our natural resources. Right here in Cameron, we've restored 110,000 acres across the coast of Louisiana. We could take the proposed funding for that one project in Vernon Parish and restore 500,000 acres of coastal wetlands, y'all. That's how much money of our tax dollars we're talking about. And that's not an exaggeration. Our project team and I just finished building 1,500 acres of marsh in Lake Pontchartrain. We just finished in December. You know, so I know we can do this. I know we can do a lot of good things. And think about what that would do for our economy, and think about what that would do for carbon sequestration, which is really what we should be doing, because that sequesters 100% carbon. Carbon dioxide is only 30% carbon. It's 70% oxygen. And we're using our tax dollars to pay some corporation to pump 70% oxygen back in our ground and tell you that it was there. And any sixth grade science student can tell you that hydrocarbons did not form in the presence of oxygen. I mean, so some of these things are just becoming ridiculous. These debates are getting ridiculous. And to say that we don't have accidents, we know, y'all. My son works at the plants in Lake Charles. What's the first thing I do when I hear a report of an explosion? Y'all know what I do. I pick that phone up and I call my son, right? Y'all do too. To suggest that this is not dangerous is foolish. We need to deal with reality. It's very, very dangerous. Now, I've never been to a protest. Like I say, let's build a natural gas electrification plant and let's get our electrical rates reasonable, folks. Not against the industry. That's misleading.
When you said the vote was, sir?
The vote on that bill in 2006 was 65-35, but overall, you know, because we tend to be more conservative in our parishes, but overall it was 55-45 percentages overall statewide. But, you know, we used to be a lot more conservative.
What did it state?
Sir,
Did the bill say exactly?
the bills would say that you can't use eminent domain for private thing, just like we're doing.
And we're gonna argue that point, at some point in time, but really, eminent domain and liabilities and things of that nature are attached to this, but we really want to get into the meat of this project here. Because this was in place, we have to have the questions to present to them, and, we understand the way the different left and right is going. So we want to get as much information as we can, but if we get caught up in the woods under eminent domain or under, other issues, we'll be here all day.
Sure, I understand. And that's not, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted just to let people know what our state, how we feel about, you know, managing things. You know, we have good people and we have smart people on both sides. And we need to meet a little bit closer to the middle. That's all I'm saying.
And for the record, I support the bill that gives the parishes more say as to what does come in or out of the parish.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Rowland?
Good morning.
Morning,
Sir Sonny, thank you, for coming to our meeting, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night, on the permit issues. I really appreciate that, showing your support. You know, I want to make sure that you gentlemen and the people of Cameron Parish understand that we at Allen, we're neighbors, like Mike said, for Vernon. And we would never encroach upon the rights of the people here or the leaders that's elected. We believe in land rights. We believe that folks should be able to do what they want to do on their land. But the thing about this is this, and I know Mr. Sonny said not to get too far, but I just want y'all to know what we've been doing. One of the things when we realized what was going on, I was a police chairman from 96 to 2012. I worked, my district's got $1,000 a mile working on roads and bridges. I never had intentions to ever go back. You know, I had served my time, I did my best. But I had one of the police chairmen come to me and said, Roland, we're fixing to receive millions and millions of dollars in this parish. And I said, well, what is it? He said, well, they fixing to start injecting CO2, you know, in the ground here. I just left all well, folks. I'm not against the industry. Our people's not against the industry by no means. But because of my experience, and I've had, you know, well issues and and things that I've seen in the past, it concerned me when he told me that. So I went to really looking into this. I called some old engineers I've worked with and different ones, and we went to talking about this, researching it a little bit. And that's when I realized that it was more than just minimum risk. You know, it was risk. So that's when I decided to run again and to try to find out as much information as I could about this, because we felt like it was definitely risk. Now we know that it is. So when I did that, I realized that in our parish did not know what was already in the making of 3 or 4 years. They had no idea. Our landowners across our parish had no idea that this new technology was coming our way and it was going to be used, eminent domain could be used to do it. So I felt like our people wasn't informed, plus our land rights could be in jeopardy. So that's when we began to really try to get something done. So I got our police jury. I come back from LSU. I went to LSU. I went to several meetings because you know what? Just like I said, that district I serve $1,000 a mile. I want to make darn sure that I don't do something against our parishes that hurts us financially when it's just a concern in my home. So that's why I really went to go into meetings, meet with industry, go into LSU, listen to the experts. And the meeting that I finally determined that, you know what, we got to go further with this, was the meeting. I sat there 4.5 hours and I listened to Dr. Upton, and I respect those folks and the energy resources. And the question that I asked after the 4.5 hours, well, what if we have a slow leak? You got to understand, y'all, this aquifer that we have is a sole water source. It's a 15 parish aquifer. It comes into Cameron Parish on the north end. It gives 21 million gallons of water a day to Lafayette Parish. This is one of the massive, most important aquifers. All of them's important, but it serves a lot of people. And so, you know, I asked the question, I said, what if we have a slow leak and we don't catch it? We don't catch it with the monitoring and we contaminate a large area, or if we have something that happens or a seismic activity and all of a sudden we have a breach and we get a good bit of CO2 in our water aquifers. You know, then they said, well, if that happens, Mr. Collins, we're going to stop injecting. We're going to call our agencies out. We're going to pump it out, clean it up, and pump it back in. And then that's when I got worried. So, because to me, it might sound as simple to them, but it didn't sound simple to me. So from that point on, I went to Vernon Parish. I went to Beauregard Parish. I went to Jeff Davis Parish. I went to several parishes, but those parishes joined us and we created the Louisiana CO2 Alliance. Because we felt like that we had to make sure that we got very important deals in place. If this is coming, and there's a 99% chance that it's coming, that we had to make sure that we protected the people, not only in our 4 parishes, but all 64 parishes of this state that don't even know that it's soon to come. There's a lot of people that has no idea today that this is coming their way. So we went to so just like he mentioned, the first well in Illinois had 2 leaks and they kept injecting on the first leak. So we put a bill together that said, okay, we got to protect our people. If this is coming, let's do some things smart. If they had, the bill said accountability, it was an accountability bill that said, if you have a leak and any company continues to inject when they know there's a leak, that it would be a criminal penalty. It's just trying to protect our people. It got defeated Tuesday, you know, and then we had a bill that said if our water systems, you know, we had a cable come through, fiber optic just comes through in our parish, like to broke most of our water system because they barely get by because they tore up so many lines. So I knew that we had to try to protect our water system. So if we have a contamination or if it messes up our equipment, we wanted guarantees that the companies would be responsible to insure our water districts, our water systems and all that. That got defeated. You know, our fire departments, like he was talking about. Listen, our, volunteers, they're gonna go in and try to save their neighbors. They know most of the people anyway. We need to make sure that they have the equipment to do that. It got fitted, but the good thing is, we working with some legislators. We still working with them. This stuff is coming back up. We having some good discussions. I think these things are gonna come back on the table, and I think we're gonna land somewhere. It's not over with yet. But to say, when they first come into the parish and promised $1 million, telling us that they was gonna look over our water system and everything, but then they fight you in Baton Rouge. It just makes you understand this. This is why I'm here today. Look, I'm certainly not encroaching upon the rights of my fellow citizens in other districts and other parishes. But what I'm saying is this, it's very important that it's coming to county parish, and every parish is, look, we need to send a message to Baton Rouge and to our leaders and say, guys, ladies, these are the things that we demand for our people that we represent: accountability, safety, and funding. In Allen Parish right now, it will be no funding for our parish. But yet we fixing to get 36 wells put in our parish that we didn't want, but it's being forced on us. And at this present time, the Alliance, we asked for $8 a ton. That company, they got $85 a ton in these tax credits. Okay, so that one well that we knew about in Allen Parish, the first one, they was gonna put 150 million metric tons. At 150 million metric tons at $85, that's $12,750,000,000 in tax credits. And what do our parish get? Zero. We get a lot of CO2 under our water aquifers, run through pipelines through our communities. And nobody, no safety, no accountability. I do think that's gonna change. I got confidence in a bunch of those folks in Baton Rouge. I think this is gonna change. But I'm here today to say this, to let you know our story, where it helps you make a better decision for your people in Cameron Parish. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sharon,
Yes.
just for a clear message here, if I heard you correctly, and I'd like confirmation on this, you don't seem to be against this. You seem to be coming to the table to make sure that you're working together to try to make it go forward. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, what I'm saying, sir, is this: I'm an industry guy, not against the industry at all. But what I am saying is, when I first started this fight, was to make sure that the landowners' rights were protected and preserved, because that's more important to me. Is that because once you start infringing on landowners' rights for private gain, that's a violation to our people, I feel. But I'm not against CCS, sir. I'm not against enhanced, my God, enhanced force. I make my living working in all field. But what I'm against is being forced, for any parish to be forced to do anything without the local governments having more authority and the people having say about having input with these projects. No, I'm not against it, but my thing is this. It's one thing coming into a parish, sitting down with them and letting the parish authority have say. When they did that vote in 2020, they took away your say. The people elected you in this parish to protect them and to look out for them. And at this point in time, now I think there's some things that's happening right now. Next Wednesday, we're going back to Baton Rouge. And I think things is happening where we're gonna get some wins that, on some of the things that we buy. No, sir, I'm not against industry. I'm against being forced to assume risk without the people even knowing about it and landowners' rights. And we have, and that we need to demand that if it comes, that we get the protections, we get the securities, we get insurance, our water districts, our fire districts get what they need. That's what I'm saying, sir. I'm not again, but I do feel like this, that parishes should have the final say. I mean, this is our homes. I mean, this is where we live, this is where we raise our grandkids, this is where our history is. And our people didn't even know it was coming out of parish. You know, there's so many people yet today still don't know what's coming their way. But that's what I keep telling the legislature, guys, we put up a hard fight. But what we do this session is for all 64 parishes. These 4 parishes have been fighting for all 64 parishes' rights and protections. But I'm asking you to help us with that. Contact your legislatures and people that y'all know. Let them know that these bills that's gonna be coming back up Wednesday and these safeties and funding and all this stuff, accountability. Because to me, I don't understand why the big corporations has a problem with us, especially when the first well in the United States is already proven to fail. I don't understand why, if you're gonna come pump 500 million to 1 billion tons of CO2 on our water, is that you can't put the guarantee that if something happens, we're gonna stop it. We're gonna fix it, and we're gonna let the local governments be part of that process. Where we can guarantee our people that it's okay if we got it fixed, and, you know, so. No, sir, I'm not against the industry, not at all. I mean, I made my living in the industry. I worked, with Mr. Glenn Trahan down here over the years, many years in their fields and stuff, but,
Sure you claim that?
well, I didn't want to look around if he was here, but I think I might ought to. No, but,
His
not
brother
really, but
was
so many
sister.
good people I've worked with over the years here, you know, look. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands. That we need to work together and guarantee, if this risk is gonna be forced on us, think about this. You know, they keep saying, just like he said, I'm gonna sit down, I know some people want to speak. But that one well, we had a mathematician, this is what I'm trying to get people to understand, how much this is really, how much accumulation this stuff's coming. That one well, you know, we're talking about 3/4 to 1 billion tons with 5 or 6 wells in one parish. We had a mathematician to do a figure on 250 million metric tons. And what the mathematician said, now it's not me, I'm sure not the mathematician, but he said that it would take like 750,000 homes, 2,400 square foot homes, put a 5-home 12-ditch roof to compress that much gas into 250, and we're talking about 3/4 million or coming in off there. And if you turn them homes on top of one another, it would reach the center of the earth. Now, that ain't me saying, that's what was told. So when you go to thinking about it all, you know, we're probably gonna be sending you some Mars down here for it's over with, so, and y'all might be sending us some back, so I don't really know, but I do feel like this, it cannot be taken lightly. I don't think this is something that we need to just take lightly as local government. The closest, we the cushion between the people and Baton Rouge. You know, the people depend on us. You know what, when something happens, they knocked on the Baton Rouge guys. They called it nuts. And that's all I'm saying. God bless y'all.
Before you leave, could you clarify the bills that are coming back up, and are they gonna make it into this session?
The bill Wednesday, we have some the 14th, I got called by legislature, this morning. The 14th, we got the safety bills and the accountability bills are coming back up. And maybe one of the taxing bills, because y'all, we don't have any, I mean, there's no funding in this stuff for us. So, but anyway,
But the eminent domain bill is not coming back.
it's possible. It's possible. I know there's discussion. I think that something good gonna come out by us working with our legislatures and not taking, you know, we took a pretty good whipping. We took a pretty good whipping the other day, but we didn't quit. You wake up the next morning, you look at a picture of your family and you say, you know what, it gives you inspiration to keep going on. We got good people down there. But the industry, this CCS, you know, it's global, it's so big, it's so powerful, it's so much money. But all I'm saying is, if you're gonna do this, work with our local governments and our people. Give us input, give us authority. Y'all took our authority away. You know, and our landowners. I mean, landowners' rights should be protected above all things in government, you know, and that's why I believe that if a landowner wants to do it, that's fine. I believe it's his right to do so, but let's not force everybody there, you know, to get it to that property. My deal about eminent domain is this, and I'm gonna sit down, is this: industry should not have a pistol in their pocket of eminent domain when they walk into a room with a landowner. That's the way I feel. I feel like the landowner should have the pistol in his pocket. That's just the way I feel about it. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing on the bills, if I may. We have bills coming up for, Vernon and Beauregard and Allen and Jeff Davis for our individual parishes. And we fought hard for y'all Tuesday. Our bill was for all the parishes, guys. We wanted all the parishes to have the right. Now we feel so strongly, we have our individual bills coming up for our parishes. And I know this is asking y'all a lot, but please support us. We don't want it. 95% of the people do not want it in our parish. So that's coming up in this session, and I'll get that information to y'all, those bills. And it's just, it's about CO2, y'all. We want natural gas. It's got nothing to do with that. This is just about the CO2 disposal sites. And I'm not sure that we was refused if y'all wanted CO2 here, and if we could find a place to put it in the parish that was safe, I don't think we would refuse that, guys. That's not what we're saying. We want some control, folks, of this, is all we're asking. But thank y'all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. James Hine.
Thank you all for having this meeting. Please don't shoot the messenger. I know, we have had a bit of a different opinion on different things. I have also worked in the industry, and my family has too, right? What has happened here the entire way has been some backroom deals, and it's not been formed for the people to know what's actually been happening, what's gonna happen with the CCS and the dangers attached to it. And I want to specifically talk to this Hackberry sequestration that is a hearing on Monday. There's a lot of wells that's been drilled in Hackberry over the years, over the decades. Some of them continue to leak occasionally. Some of them we don't know where they're at. That's one of the concerns for me, besides the aquifer being perforated by CO2, by one of these straws that we have dropped down, that the CO2 is going to find a way up into the water. And it's also going to pressure up some of these wells that don't currently just have the pressure, the gradient that's there, without adding more pressure of putting the CO2 in there. So, I mean, it's amazing to me that there's quite a large coalition of folks across the entire political spectrum who don't believe this is the way forward, and yet we see industry is trying to do this to get some taxpayer money. At the end of the day, what's funding this is taxpayer money. It's 45Q. The idea that somehow, I mean, I realize the room I'm in, and the people don't believe that the climate change is driven and caused by fossil fuels and caused by continued greenhouse gases being emitted. Why in the world are we trying to store it underground and to cause such the potential, the contamination of the aquifer and the people who live around there? I don't know if anyone from the industry wants to come speak to this piece. But the one that's happening on Monday, the hearing that we're hearing in Hackberry, is for Cameron LNG to store carbon underground off of what I believe is electrified turbines. It's not even the gas turbines that already are existing that drive it. Anyway, the bottom line is we should not just allow for this to happen. And unfortunately, we tried to fight the EPA giving primacy to the DENR because unfortunately, my sister works for the DNR, so there's a lot of good workers in the DEQ and the DNR, but for some reason, the reason happens to be that moneyed interests of corporations over the people have continued to allow for permitting that may be disadvantaged for the people that actually live there. And that should not stand. The fact that there's all these eminent domain, that they cap the limit that the companies are gonna be liable for. If someone dies behind this, all of that has been put out by these lobbyists and by the industry. And I don't think that we should just trust that the agencies that are in place are going to do the right thing to protect the people. And I agree with Roland and Mike. I've said that before. If y'all would have known that these 3 LNGs would not be paying any taxes, and if that was in Baton Rouge or backroom deal, the ITEP program,
Could I interrupt you for a second?
you know,
Try not to get off in the
Sorry.
weeds here, and the LNGs are not
okay.
our topic today.
Well,
But the CO2 that you mentioned a while ago, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, it's not coming off the emissions of the turbine, it's coming out of their CO2 projection system, am I correct? Okay, it's the CO2 that they're putting back in the ground, CO2 that actually came out of the ground. Not all that in that one spot, but came out of the ground from the gas that they're cleaning it out of. They have to clean it for their process. But we don't want to get out in the woods. We want to look at this permit here. We have a permit coming up Monday. Any concerns that are based in fact or based in even worry or question, we want to capture those, make sure we get them answered. So that's what the main purpose of this meeting is about.
that's something, thank you. Well, like I said,
And James, I know you said don't shoot the messenger, but I will say you're starting to get a rapport with me because I'm starting to understand you talking. I think you was here on that same podium talking about not putting CO2 in the air, so now you don't want it in the ground. Where are we planning on sticking it?
In the air, I would prefer if we're gonna build out more that we don't try to
Continue
continue
to where you're at on this, because I remember you standing there saying you didn't want it in the air either.
I'm
Right?
not gonna get to LNG. I hear you, Mike. I think it's like,
I'm just making sure we're on the same page.
I want you to understand something.
Yeah.
Just like Roland said, we support our industry.
I hear
And
that.
we have beat that horse plenty.
Right.
My point being is we want to make sure that whatever's gonna happen next is discussed till there's no more discussion.
We want collaboration is what we want. We want to work together, go forward with a solution that benefits everybody.
I think, in that case, the concern is about the massive amount of wells that have already been drilled, that some of them are abandoned, some of them are capped. Some of them we know were capped with a log and a little bit of cement on the top, you know?
Definitely a risk. I agree.
It's a huge risk. I mean, there's a lot of them that we know about, and there's even more we probably don't. On top of contaminating the aquifer. That is my, I mean, that is a huge.
And one more correction for the record, LNG does pay taxes. So I just want you to know that too. They got an ITEP program, but we do get quite a bit of taxes today from the LNG industry. So make sure we correct that on record.
Pennies on the dollar for what's owed. I mean, 184, anyway, we don't argue. I really don't want to argue that.
Pennies in my pocket, I know that.
That's why we don't want to get into the woods.
Thank you,
But
thank
that's
you.
an argument we can have with the governor's office.
Because I agree with you. I
They gave them
mean,
the 10-year exemption, not us.
yeah.
Right, well, that's the same, that's the same, I brought that up only to illustrate what has happened. Because that happened in Baton Rouge. This eminent domain, this limiting liability, all of that also happened in Baton Rouge. And now we're at the end of it where the Class 6 well is we were asking to be able to see some of this permit, this 1,100 page permit, before a 30-day comment period, so we can understand what's actually being going. They've been working on this for years, and the public doesn't know. I mean, I'm an environmental nonprofit, but the public around here, and especially Hackberry, doesn't know. And are they gonna read 1,100 page? Are they gonna understand what the actual thing is? We should have more time than 30 days to make public comments on a thing as consequential as this can and will be. So that's another point. So we've asked the DNR to extend it, and it's within their rights to do it. They haven't said they will, and they probably won't.
I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think this is a permit to construct, not a permit to operate. So there's still some more time involved in this. That's correct.
Yeah, the class, yeah, I think the operating part of it though, after it gets
Still
the,
a distance away. They're not constructing it tomorrow and.
Well, none of it-
Project it next week, so just want to make that clear.
okay. I think the points I wanted to make, and I do appreciate y'all holding a meeting. I don't know if it was live stream. How can we get the people in Hackberry who are closest to this to understand what's going on and to show up Monday with their concerns, to put that on public record? That,
Actually, DNR has already put notices on all of our public buildings, and I would say by being a representative of Hackberry, people are well aware that that hearing is there.
okay,
And these meetings also are gonna be, put on our website, so people are gonna be, and they do watch our web meeting, would not like.
yeah. Well, I mean, usually it's live stream. I was just trying to see if it wasn't live on Facebook yet.
James, and just for the record, man, if you want to come and be part of the solution, any day of the week.
Okay.
Come with good ideas, come with that. I just want to make sure that we constructive, we're collaborating, we're working together. I mean, we all want a good environment.
I agree. I think that's, and I appreciate y'all having this meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? One of the trade heads, Mr. Stevie, Mr. Jim? Yes, sir.
Yes, I didn't fill out a card,
All right.
but it's okay. I came to listen, but
Well, we want to hear what you got to
I'll
say.
talk.
Well,
I love the microphone. I might get fired Monday, but.
You mentioned we really want to hear what you have to say, because not only do you work for the company, you live in Hackberry.
Right.
This affects you, affects your children, affects your grandchildren, so we want to hear what you got to say.
Well, I appreciate that, Sonny. And just for the folks that don't know, I do work at Cameron LNG, and I am the external relations manager for those folks. Been there 12 and a half years. Spoke with you guys, been coming to the meetings as often as we can, not just because there's a topic coming up. So I come to be in the know and to help you any way I can. Our family has property that is very near this 12,000 acres that Cameron LNG owns. Have a niece that's trying to buy a house right now that would be the closest neighbor to this piece of property. As far as the geography of it, there's been no production or exploration on it, none. So let's get that straight right now, okay? I trust the science. I trust the methods. I'm pro-industry, and I'm okay with it. I want to say something to you guys. I sat in your chairs before for 8 years. I wasn't lucky enough to sit in these. I had to sit in the old building. Then we lost that. But y'all have to make the tough decisions. Y'all were put in office by the majority of the people of Cameron Parish. Y'all are doing a good job and holding this meeting, hearing everybody talk. I appreciate that. You got to make tough decisions, and sometimes it's a lot of back and forth. But at the end of the day, you're doing what's best. Been a resident there all my life. My family's been there for over 200 years, and we got more people who stay there. The family's going to continue. So appreciate what y'all are doing, and thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, Mr. Stevie, you, that the operator you do work for is one of the most responsible that I've ever seen, you know.
Well, and I enjoyed having you there as well. And, you know, everybody's got to do what they got to do, and we wish we had you back, Ron.
You have it back.
Will you have that? If there's no more questions, I hope I kind of covered everything.
Only say you can have them cheap.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. John,
So first of all, just I'm happy to be here with y'all in person. I really want to thank, the questions that were raised, by Mr. Rowland and Nichols and Mr. Hyatt. I think, well, I plan to introduce myself first. I'm from Center Infrastructure. I'm the project director for, Hackberry Carbon Sequestration Project. And for those of you maybe who don't know, Center Infrastructure is, the majority owner of Cameron LNG. We own over 50%, and so we've been in the community quite a long time. But yeah, I wanted to first just maybe start by thanking the concerns that y'all raised, Mr. Rowland and Mr. Nichols, and Mr. Hyatt. And I think we understand that there's something new, coming to the community, that people are going to have questions, they're going to have concerns. And there was a lot of issues raised, so I won't be able to hit them all, right now. But I feel like the fundamental thing that maybe y'all want is you want this to be done safely. And you wanted, there's some transparency. So you want to know about our project, what we're doing. And, you may want an opportunity for us to hear your concerns and maybe address your concerns. And so, I feel like, I'll maybe describe some of the things we've already done, but then I'll also give y'all an opportunity, to talk to us again, but what we've kind of already done as far as engagement with the community, we submitted this permit, over like 3.5 years ago. And so I think we came to the belief, it wasn't me, it was my predecessor, but, we came to the police jurors, 2021, was when we originally submitted our permit to the EPA at that time. And so we've been at this quite a while. We've been engaged with the EPA for like the last 3 years. And we've been engaged in now the LDNR since they got the primacy. Then I have to say more recently, since we've been issued this draft Class 6 permit, we already have folks here in the community, the trade hands. We have our community relations folks that are here. But we've already had, over the last few months, we've already had, like engagements with local community folks, just like letting you know about the project. One of the benefits of coming to our local engagements is that we can show you pictures, we can show you the plume. I heard earlier, folks want to see like, where's the CO2 going? Where's the well, where's the pipeline? So we do that in these local meetings, and we've done that the last couple of months. But we're happy to come back, and we're happy to do more sessions like that with all of you guys and anybody else that wants to attend. But just some of the things that I wanted to highlight, maybe about the scope of the project, is the primary goal of doing this was to take emissions from Cameron LNG that are emitted to the atmosphere today, and the goal was to take those emissions and put them in the ground and permanently store them. And a lot of the project, hopefully y'all know where Cameron LNG is. I assume folks do, but the rest of the CCS project is almost all on our own property. So there's going to be a 9-mile CO2 pipeline that kind of goes from Cameron LNG, and it's going to go west. We're going to have one single injector well. That well is about 3 miles northeast of kind of the Hackberry residence. So we have the advantage of being rural, and then we're on the other side of Black Lake. So I think, if folks want more information and they want to ask all the detailed questions and they want answers, we're happy to hold more sessions like that. And I said, it's very helpful when we can show you all pictures. So we'll show you pictures of the pipeline, where it's going. We'll show you the well. We'll also show you like the CO2 plume. The CO2 plume is going to go underground. We're going to start injecting about 2 miles below the ground. And the groundwater here is pulled from about 500 feet and maybe 1,000 feet at the maximum. But we're going to be injecting, in rock layers that are starting 2 miles deep. And so we can walk you through like the geology and all the different layers of rocks that are on top of it, and all the thick layers of rock that are impenetrable. And we can also kind of walk you through, there's no oil and gas wells in this area, in our area of review. And that's actually why we picked it and why the LDNR, I think, really likes this project. And also we're away from any faults that are potential leak paths. So I think we're happy to walk folks through this, and the CO2 plume, just as part of the permitting process, we have to model like, we inject that plume way down underground, and then we have to model kind of what happens to that plume over the next 100 years after we stop injecting. And so we kind of show, what's the maximum distance this thing can move, and then when does it settle in and just stay there. And so we can show you that, and we'll show you what we think the plume's gonna look like. And the goal of our project is to keep that plume underneath our own property. And if there was a time where, we wanted to expand, we would talk to the neighbors and say, hey, we would offer you a fee to store CO2 underneath the property. We actually have a similar project in Texas that we're doing for our LNG project there. But we had to work with local landowners, and we had to sign a contract with them to get the rights to store CO2 under their property, and we're paying them for it. So that's what we would do here if the time comes for that. But right now, the majority of this project is on our own property. And the goal is to keep the CO2 plume on our own property for even 100 years after we stop injecting. So that's just some of the things so yeah, folks we're really concerned about eminent domain. I heard that. Right now, we don't have any, eminent domain in our project. And I heard a lot of concerns about the legacy wells. We don't have any legacy oil and gas wells, on our area review. And, we also went like a step further. We check all the old oil and gas records to see, if there's any old wells that were drilled there. We even took a drone and it's called a magnetometer, but it's like a big magnet. And this drone flew the magnet over the property of the whole area review to see if there's any metal underground, because it can sense metal underground, to see if there's any old casing from old wells. And so, we did this scanned the entire property and saw that there were no well casings and no old wells, on the property. And now that we've done that for our permit application, like LDNR's having everybody else do that too. So at the end of the day, we want this to be a safe project. Part of the goal of decarbonizing Cameron LNG is that we want Cameron LNG to continue operating for a long period of time. And that's even if regulations change, if LNG has to become cleaner in the future, we want to be able to clean it up. And it's also supposed to, we want to increase the air quality. But at the end of the day, I know y'all had a lot of concerns. I don't know that I can hit them all in this forum and right now, but I just want to say, transparency is important. We want to do this safely. And we will have follow-up sessions and we'll answer anybody's questions in the community.
I got a couple of questions for you. So, one of the things I hear from some of the citizens is, will this affect adjacent landowners, oil and gas exploration on adjacent landowners?
So I would say as part of the permitting process, that is a big topic that comes up. But in our area, most of the oil and gas production is southeast of us, kind of around the Strategic Petroleum Reserve area. And so fortunately where we are, there weren't oil and gas reserves and there's not wells. So we're located in a great area where we're not interfering with people's mineral rights. But fortunately, Sempra also owns the land and service rights and mineral rights. So in this particular case, we own both.
So it won't affect the adjacent land.
It will not affect the adjacent landowners.
And will any be coming from other parishes or states?
So the primary goal of this project was to decarbonize Cameron LNG. However, we're only using about a fourth of the capacity. We do have room for more CO2, maybe Allen Parish or if they like our site. And I would say we are looking for other partners to bring CO2 to make the project work. But our primary goal was to decarbonize Cameron LNG.
So then you'll be transported across parishes or states?
Well, we don't know I would say we're targeting our nearest neighbors because building long pipelines is not something we want to do. It's very expensive and it's tough to get a long distance pipeline approved anyway. So I'd say our goal is to work with our nearest neighbors to bring in more CO2, but we don't know who that partner is going to be yet. So I can't really tell you with certainty. But going out of state would be a long pipeline. So yeah,
I'm referring to maybe Driftwood or whatever the name.
If they would work with us. Yeah.
One of the issues that we have is that we're already going to be putting in a lot of carbon that didn't originate in Cameron, came in through the pipelines. You guys are, and Cheniere and Venture and everyone, and there's a tremendous amount of natural gas that comes through this parish that gets liquefied. We're already putting a lot of CO2 in the ground that did not originate. And I think as a good neighbor, you should be looking at making sure that what you create in your parish is the first thing you take care of. So we're very concerned about what's coming in the parish, and at some point in time, we may even be wanting to limit where they come from, because if we fill up all our caverns, taking in everybody else's CO2, what happens when we have a business that wants to locate in Cameron Parish and cannot, because there's no placement? But we want to be looking at it. There's a lot of things we want to look at as we learn more about this process. There's a lot of questions that we have. I got a ton of safety questions for you. The fact that you found a spot in Hackberry, but since with a 6 mile radius, am I correct? 3 miles, 6 miles? That didn't have a well, just blew my mind. Because even Wildcat back then was poking holes everywhere they could go. I couldn't even find a spot in Cameron Parish, for that matter, 6 miles nowhere. That's amazing. But again, we want to ask the questions. I don't know if you're prepared to answer the questions. I see you have your public relations people here, but I know you don't have the geologists. I don't think they're here. Or maybe you can answer some quick. Are y'all prepared to answer some questions if we had direct questions? Good.
Rather than a question that I have, I just want to relay this in the meeting because it's a much smaller group, but you know, one concern that we brought to light there in Hackberry at our meeting was the path of these pipelines. And I just want to touch on that base of, y'all seem very, very open-minded to maybe consider rerouting these things after this permit. I didn't want to change them prior to the permit. But I guess let's start off with, how many permits does it require before CO2 actually touches this road?
Well, you have to get your CO2 pipeline permit. We do have an Army Corps permit for the CO2 pipeline already. This class 6 process, we have a draft permit to construct. And so, and we're having the hearing on Monday, as you all know. But should we be fortunate enough to receive the final permit to construct, then we drill the well, we have to do more coring, more testing, gather more data. We have to update all of our models. And then we have to resubmit an application to inject. And there's a whole other process to get the, and you just get a draft permit to inject, and probably more hearings. So it'll be quite a while before we got this permit to inject. And that's the point where you can actually start the project and have to inject CO2. And there's probably some other permits, but those are the big ones. The Army Corps permit and the class 6 are the longer lead permits.
So have y'all been able to reach back to y'all's team and talk about possible relocation of these pipes?
So our current pipeline route, we are leveraging LA storage land that we already own and it's already cleared. And I think there's an idea that we could put a pumping station there. And that might be a good place if we were to bring in CO2 from another partner. That might be a good spot. So I would just say we don't have certainty yet on who that partner is and where the CO2 is coming from. And so I think we need to further that before we make a final decision on the pipeline route. But we are considering the other route that we're talking
Right across y'all's.
about. Yeah, we are considering that.
Do you have any timeline when that consideration will come to conclusion?
I don't, a lot of it depends on who the partner is, where it's coming from. So it's very uncertain schedule.
Just for the record, the parishes don't have a whole lot of say with this permit is as far as well, exploration or injection. But we're planning on it. Hopefully these fields, some of these fields will go through, will have a little bit more say. On this deal, I won't face this question. I'm more concerned about issues of safety and having the ability to pass a resolution, or ordinances, or whatever it takes to ensure that the safety not only meets but exceeds what the state's going to put on you, what the federal going to put on. So I'm going to ask this question: what is your operational plan if you see that the migration is already started, or you see that there's a leak that's indication somewhere? What is the plan? What is your safety plan?
Well, the first thing is we stop operations. And, we'll have shut-off valves before the CO2 pipeline, and also have shut-off valves at the well. And I think at that point, you start the investigation on, where's the CO2, where's the leak? It depends obviously the cause of the leak, but if you know that there was, some kind of issue with casing, then you go in and you squeeze some new cement in there and you fill the hole. But yeah, it depends on the issue, but we obviously stop operations. And at that point, the regulators were very involved as well in understanding what the core issue was and how we solved the problem. But I think our permit also lays out a couple other potential remediations. And I think, at the end of the day, we have to meet the regulators' expectations to resume operations.
Now, I was told a lot of that was in the permit application, but the application, I think, is about 900 pages.
Oh, it's like 1,000. Yeah, it's over
Yeah, and
1,000.
we really rely on the state agencies to read these things, because we don't have the personnel or the technical expertise to really go through those things. Well, when it comes to something that could be a public concern, public safety, we're gonna be pushing for increased involvement in the future time. So we don't let y'all know ahead of time.
Well, thanks, Patrick. Wants to add something to your question?
Patrick McCullough, drawing engineer for the project. I know we had the opportunity to meet with a few of y'all at those engagement sessions. So I'm further going on that. So I think it's section 8, don't quote me on that, but happy to go back through it with any of y'all. We actually list out in multiple different scenarios. If this happens, here's a response time. here's our response. This is who we have to notify within 24, 48, those kind of hours. And these are the steps that we need to take. So a lot of those things were laid out explicitly, bullet point by bullet point. And I know we've spoken briefly as well with the fire department and some other first responders. Happy to go through it as much detail as y'all want at the time that works for you.
My concern is that we know what's gonna happen. We all have oil and gas experience, pipeline experience. We know you're gonna shut in, but that's a given. I'd like to know if it's gonna be automatic or is it gonna be, operated by some person somewhere?
So there's gonna be, we don't have all of this done at this time, because that's kind of all parts of future phases of engineering, whenever you go through and build these specific kind of SCADA pieces. But our vision and what we have in there is that we would have both set points, that if it would trigger one of those set points, that's an automatic version. You'd also have this built into a control room where they'd be overseeing and be able to shut it in themselves.
Okay.
So you have,
Now, when I'm asking two questions, one's gonna be safety, but one's gonna be for being a good steward. Okay, it's migrating where it's not supposed to. Have you even discussed remediation at that point?
Yes, sir. So as part of the permit, we're required to have a 5-year look at least, and we'd be looking at, so 5-year understanding of what the plume would be doing. So we have over 10 monitoring technologies. The one that's probably the most effective in understanding what the plume would be doing on a lateral perspective is called VSP or seismic profiles. And so we'd be using that to get an understanding of where the CO2 would be going, what the way it would be moving, and can then either modify our injection strategy or kind of have to do every 5-year updates of the permit. So yes, that is part of it.
When you talk about models, is there any permitting requirements that make y'all do any kind of models for pipeline failure? Like as far as plume, you talking about plume, but I'm talking about a release, like have a danger area. If the worst case scenario, the pipeline, I don't know the size of the pipeline y'all have, but is there any of those studies done?
So as part of the FERC with the LNG facility does have certain regulations and requirements that have to be done for things that are within the fence line. And then to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any specific requirements on that. We've done some preliminary work right now. And then as part of the what's called FEED or front end engineering, so the kind of more detailed design, we'd be looking at doing more in-depth versions of that work, taking into account wind distance, wind directions, amount of time release, all of those different things. Yes, sir. But do not have final results at this time.
I just think that'd be very valuable data to let people know in the community nearby, this is worst case scenario. Foggy day, we talk about CO2, resting on the ground. I think that would help, ensure the safety and comfort of the project.
Yes, sir. And specifically on that, I know we were able to tell a few of y'all, but as part of in the permit, one of the things that we've committed to is prior to initial injection, we'd be having a mock exercise with first responders for a few different scenarios if this happened. One of those specifically is on a pipeline rupture. We'd be working through, okay, what would be the sequence of events that we'd want to go through if that unlikely, unfortunate scenario did happen. So with that, we'd obviously be going through what those dispersion house, all of those things would look like with those first responders in advance. But yes, so committing to that prior to initial operation and then every 3 years after.
And one thing for the record, for positive, y'all was talking about volunteer departments. These guys, they know our department by first name. They really are very involved with our local department and appreciate that. And I want that to be known for the record.
Where this goes, what's the closest house, is gonna be associated with the pipeline route? Or is this rock solid, or is this as they made?
As it sits today, it's made those littles of management.
For the pipeline route, it would be Miss Maynard Slittle. For the actual injection well, it would be Miss Deborah Cloud, which is 160 Leonard Cloud Road at this time.
Okay, and what would be the distance of that?
30 miles from Miss Deborah, and from the injection well, it's out, Maynard is outside of the 30 miles. The pipeline route, of course, is much closer because she is our immediate neighbor to storage.
Are y'all expecting to oversize your pipe or do anything special where it's closer to, these people, or, because I see what going in, it looks like in the edge of the lake, which is fine, that's great. But, where it's closer, will y'all be doing anything special or extra?
So regarding the pipeline, so this is the API 5L pipeline. This is a heavy wall thickness. So we've actually gone in and oversized 9-mile pipeline through all of this, but actually had a heavy wall thickness, both to help with buoyancy, making sure we're not having to use concrete mats staying. So we've already gone and inspected the full pipeline at this time with heavier wall thickness.
So the whole thing will be the same, won't be no thicker wall. Is this a lined pipeline or is this a solid, stainless steel pipeline?
It's a carbon steel pipeline.
It's carbon steel.
Yes, sir.
I thought this was highly corrosive, we're gonna be using carbon steel.
So there's been some, I guess, miscommunications, and I've walked through this with, actually, someone else in this, crowd on another time. So I think there's sometimes misconceptions about CO2. And as someone who's worked in petroleum production ops, I understand where some of these kind of questions are coming from. If you think about, so I'm going to kind of back up for a second. If you think about whenever oil and gas comes out of the ground, it comes out with a few things. It's either gas, maybe some CO2 and water, or oil, gas, CO2 and water. And so you've got multiple pieces in there. So I'm going to go back all the way to the full value chain. Sorry if some of y'all know this.
Impurities. Impurities.
Yes, sir. Kind of period. So then it goes into gathering and processing facility, which is responsible for taking out the water and potentially if the CO2 is above pipeline spec, which for most of the world's kind of a 2% answer. So they have to get below that 2% spec. And then let's say it then gets to Cameron LNG, the LNG facility. As part of the liquefaction process, CO2 will actually freeze if it goes through the normal process. So you have to take it out before then. And so that is where the CO2 for this project would be coming from. It's called the pre-treatment, where they pre-treat the gas so that CO2 is removed completely.
So it's gonna be in a gas form until it reaches the first section, the storage area?
No, so it's been pre-treated. So then at that point, it would go into the capture component of this, which it would be partially compressed, where it start getting closer to like it go through a dehydration, which dehydrates the water down to less than 50 ppm of water. So very, very dry water. And that's where you kind of remove this concern of the carbonic acid because there's minimal water and highly just effectively pure CO2 is not corrosive to.
So it's gonna be in a semi-liquid form, from the site all the way to the well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the storage? You're gonna have compression at the storage, is that increase it, in pressure or what?
No, sir. The plan is to get to the appropriate amount of pressure to be able to get into the well at the Cameron LNG facility. So no additional compression. If there is the need, and that was the original idea behind the routing with the V, if there's a need for an additional booster compressor there, that would be where additional compression would occur. Pumping really at that point.
So a carbon steel pipeline.
Yes, sir. Carbon steel pipeline. But then,
Talk about the well.
an important part, so I know it's in all of y'all's handouts, so specifically on the well itself. So it goes through a carbon steel pipeline because yet again, we've dried out the CO2 very dry. However, once it goes into the well, it will ultimately interact with water because down where we'd be injecting is very briny water. And so you do have the ability for CO2 and water to then react again. And so because of that, if you see kind of the main tubing string of the well, it's made out of what's called 25 chrome. So that is a highly corrosion resistant material that can handle that mixing of water and CO2 within that wellbore. And that's why we specifically chose that. Kind of specifically hitting on some other concerns that have been brought up. The ADM wells were using a lower. Thank you. Archer Daniels Midland, Illinois, that project that's been referenced today, that one was using a lower concentration of chrome in it, so it had less corrosion resistance. So we've gone with the more corrosion resistant requirement. So it'd be going through that well and then into the pore space or the storage area.
Has this process, has this been done with the carbon steel pipeline and anywhere else?
Yes, so there's over 5,000 miles of CO2 pipelines in the United States that I believe the vast majority are all carbon steel.
I would misled it. I would totally all treated pipes.
So historically, do you know what the cause of some of these past failures were on pipelines?
So we have looked at some of the instances that occurred to date. So I can specifically speak or can happy to walk through anyone with the one that happened in Mississippi is the one I'm probably the most familiar with, sir. And we've made sure to try and then take those learnings and then bring them into our own project as well.
What was that?
So that one was a a few different factors that occurred. One of the largest ones was it was on a hill. They have obviously a very different kind of geotechnical background than is going to be happening for this site at Hackberry. So where it was on a hill, they had a lot of water that caused a landslide on the hill. Yes, and caused it to where ultimately it sheared and then had the rupture there. And so that was kind of one of the root causes. And then there were a few things that have happened after that of not being as well prepared with the first responders, which is something that we've already built into our permit. And then there was also some issues with their close of their mainline valves, which given the short distance we have between our mainline valves, both at the capture facility and the sequestration, well, be able to shut those in and cut off the main flow.
How many valves you're gonna have on the pipeline?
Proposing to have, on the part that's been permitted, and we're talking about right now, it's 2. So you have one at Cameron LNG, and then you have the other valve at the wellhead.
So if you have a leak, how many miles is that? 6 miles, 7 miles,
Maximum of 9.
9 miles?
Yes, sir.
What's the total volume in that?
I do not know that when I can get back to you.
6 size of the pipeline to get 1 bit
12-inch pipeline.
12 inch.
I think that's where the value of the boom study would come.
Yes. Well, that's one of the questions that a lot of people are raising, is how many shut-off valves, how long is the reaction time for those shut-off valves, and how do you notify the public that there's possibly be a leak?
So what's all the thickness is up there?
And while I do not know the number off the top of my head, I can get back to you.
Is this gonna require some more digging on the intervals?
It is planned to be picked over time, yes, sir.
What is that? Period, how many months between,
That would be part of kind of the next phase of engineering.
we'd be interested in that.
So
Is there a possibility for us to be involved and y'all get to the point to ask the questions? So we don't come after this back after the engineer's complete. There a way for us to have input, in front? That ain't back.
I mean, I think we're gonna have various times where we engage the community, and I think like we are now, where we can hear your questions, what's your concerns. I think we're having another phase when we get the permit to inject as well, so we can do these community engagements again and have more discussion.
I think what he's talking about is basically, if we've been on turning into this one, we probably would suggest that pipeline route different to start with. So he just wants to try to be proactive rather than reactive.
Well, I think we're happy to listen to your concerns.
Appreciate your time and effort. I don't know if there's any more questions.
like, again, just want to reiterate, if any of y'all have the opportunity, and any other questions y'all want to go through in detail, I know 1,100 pages is a lot, so we can try and condense it down for you and hit the things you're worried about. So happy to go through it at any time.
So do y'all have a condensed version of that? No?
No, we can create condensed based on what you're looking.
Oh, I mean, I think all the graphics and pictures we showed you all in the community center are the super condensed versions. We're happy to do that again.
Like I said, as we go through this, just like the public, further I go, the more questions I got. Questions, I don't always have a lot of questions, but just think, I mean. That's what we're saying.
Appreciate it. Like I said, I know this being recorded and we have other, but just for the record, please take into consideration about the path of that pipeline. I really would like to see it go straight across and not come to the main and the back very possible.
Thank you. Yes, there's Scott, you want to talk on behalf of your group?
Good morning, y'all. Hope y'all are all doing good on this Friday morning. I went and visited with the gentleman from Sempra because I have a lot of concerns. You know, you got a lot of people asking a lot of questions out there. Every time I turn around, there's somebody asking me a question. I think that they've answered most of the questions that the way I wanted them answered. But we need to be, as a community, we need to be on top of it. The jury needs to be on, be involved in all of it. So I'm not against it, but we have questions. And I think that's where y'all are probably standing at right now, if I might, have to guess. Just a lot of questions, a lot of stuff being thrown at y'all, because I know it's being thrown at me. So it's just, let's move forward and let's try to make sure that industry, gives us the answers that we have, all the questions we have,
I got two questions for you. One, I would like for you to do a kind of little study to figure out what benefit is this gonna bring to the parish as far as tax dollars go.
I'm on the committee for these new projects on the state level. I'll get you a little presentation together. I won't be here Monday. I've got previous obligations. But whenever we have another meeting or a get together, I will give y'all the whole scenario of what the values are of all of this stuff with the year life, the whole nine. And what's your next one?
Next question is, if you're on ITEP, is this gonna be exempt from that 10-year tax exemption, or are they gonna get a 10-year tax exemption?
As of now, they're not getting it. It comes on the tax roll right away.
I think that was already discussed in Hackberry that this project was not ITIP.
No, it is not ideal.
It's gonna be on the tax roll as soon as it's commissioned.
That's right, as soon as it's commissioned.
But I don't believe anybody has come up with any kind of taxation final procedures on this yet.
That's what I'm on that committee for. We're in the process of dealing with industry.
And to correct this, when it comes to the parish, we don't have a pipeline tax. We don't have an inventory tax. We have an asset tax. So the only thing we would tax would probably be their storage facility. And well,
No pipeline, the storage facility. There's not much value. Because of
It's not an
the
inventory.
it's not an inventory, but the equipment that it takes to extract the CO2 and the pipeline are both taxable.
and well,
The well, very minimal. Just how we can only fight you can only fight so hard without causing too much turmoil.
well, I think about Mr. Roden's situation. Again, we limit the taxation ability on these things, but it's something that should be explored.
Right,
To share a little bit with the rural communities that have to take this.
right. That's perfect. And that, the more information we all gather between us, and I understand one of them said something about their parish is maybe wanting to collect some type of money because of tax credits or something. I don't, maybe something y'all explore.
Well, you keep that in mind, when you're in committee meetings.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
That's my two questions.
You know, if there's any kind of, will there be some kind of statewide or federal program paid into for operators who maybe can't afford to clean up or what have you, mitigation? Because what happens, after years, these things get sold to other operators that may not have the.
Oh, you're talking about wells that get orphaned back to the state, and they just walk away from them. I don't know of anything that's on the. Okay.
I don't know. Okay, hey, Dr. Cole, two things on that one. So as part of the project, you have the ability to pay into the state fund. So if I'm not mistaken, that's $5 million over a certain period of time. But then the more important thing that it sounds like you're trying to make sure and hit on is the abandonment, those kind of things. I think there has been an understanding of what's happened in the past. As part of these projects, I think it's section 9 or 10, yeah, again, it's one of those two. It's called financial assurance, where the CCS project has to explicitly state out what are the costs for remediation of the well in the long term. Actually, also part of if there's an emergency situation, that's all laid out there. And you have a financial assurance through either like a surety bond or something else specifically for that amount of money. So that is laid out black and white in the document. And no matter whoever is the owner of that CCS facility has to have that same level of financial assurance.
And my concern with that is if it migrates over to the adjacent landowner and or gets into the aquifer, it's gonna take a lot of money to get this mitigated.
That's one of the scenarios that's lined out. So yes, sir, have to go through them.
Thank you. Any other questions? That's good. All right.
Appreciate it, Scott.
How,
Mr. Howard?
Have a question, sir. Oh, well, I just,
So you ready?
I was listening to them and I thought of a thing or two that, go ahead, sir.
All right, I'm kind of bashful too when you put a microphone, I'm kind of like Steve. But having said that, look guys, this is a great thing that y'all are doing. You're doing your job because you're bringing it out, you're listening to all the parts. On my side, I've lived in Cameron Parish all my life. I remember the first oil and gas plant built in Johnson Bike. And I heard all of the neighbors as a kid, it's gonna blow up and kill us all. Well, I was the closest neighbor because it was in the field that I picked cotton. And that old plant's been here for a long, long time. Still hadn't blown up. Then a lot of good people got their retirement from there and enjoyed their retirement working in that plant. So what I'm telling you is we got to look at industry a lot of times. Now I hear the guys from Vernon and I hear their concerns. I also hear them mention eminent domain all the time, eminent domain. Look, the port has eminent domain. I'm the president of the port. Never ever used it. I'm not sure if it's been used in Cameron Parish. So although that's a big issue for them, and it's all right, we get where we don't have to have people taking people's property. But that's not the issue you're looking at here today. The issue is you got a business. By the way, if about 4 or 5 years ago, every time somebody got up and was doing with the LNGs, it was to get carbon out of the air. Now, what they've done is they forced the government and everybody else to spend a lot of money to figure out how to get it out of the air. So they said, we're gonna get it out of the air and gonna put it in the ground where it came from. Well, now they want to put it back in the air. So you're never gonna please everybody. What you gotta do is take all of that, because there's a what if in everything you do. There was a what if when I walked out my door this morning that I might get killed in a car wreck before I got there. But what I did is I looked at the probability of that. That was about 100 million to 1. So I came on down. So you're gonna have some what ifs. Now, we talk about the aquifer. I know it's about 500 feet to about 1,1500 feet. And I also know that the surface is a lot more porous than the hard rock in the ground. And I also know that your aquifers are filled from the surface, not from the bottom. In everybody's aquifer. So, you say, what if something happens? Well, there's a what if in everything you do. And I'm not going to tell you there's not some chance of something. Are you not going to do anything? If you not build the LNGs because of what ifs, because I heard it was going to destroy all of our fishing. It was going to leak out on the ground and burn us all down. And none of that's happened. Now, could that happen? If so, what's the odds of that? So what we chose to do in Cameron Parish is bring the industry. And by the way, it was the right choice.
Hey, Mr. Howard, not to interrupt, but to add a little bit of color. I was an 18-year-old firefighter in Johnson Bayou when Shamir did that. And they backed up that truck and started dumping LNG in that pit. I said, what are y'all doing? They said, we fixing to light it. I said, I'm fixing to leave. I said, no, just stay still. So you do have a lot of warranty in that, because, that's it.
But you see, Mike,
It is nice to be informed and educated. That makes you
that
good.
everybody told us that it was gonna blow up and kill us all. Everybody told us it's gonna destroy fishing. Everybody told, you know, and if we listen to that, hey, I had a guy tell me that all the mud back of the jetties was caused by LNG. And I said, do you know where I'm from? He said, no, where? I lived in Hollow Beach for 15 years. I pulled more cars out of that mud flat than you'll ever think about. Same mud you got in that little container there. And I said, there was no LNGs, never even, I didn't even know what LNG meant. So I said, don't tell me about that. You know, negatives are easy to get. All you gotta do is just throw a little bit of something out there and it'll build up. Positives are a lot harder to get. Now, what we gotta do is look at the industries. And by the way, I'm all for us figuring out how to get some money out of it. Because I'm a guy that believes that anything that comes to Cameron Parish, that they should do a little something for us. And I looked at Cameron LNG, look at all what they did for Hankton. We built a community center, they built several things. So they are a good neighbor. Let's just maybe talk to them about how we can share in that. But what y'all are doing here today is a great thing, because you're looking for the answers to all the questions. You're giving people the chance to, but don't come up here and tell us what's all bad. There's been a lot of research done on this. We got to trust our agencies. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, you didn't have anybody. You spilled oil on the ground. We're in the oil business. I've been in the oil business for 35, 40 years. If you spilled any, you didn't have to report it. Today, if you spill 125 gallons, you better report it, because you're behind, you're going to be in bad shape. So you got to report it. And what they're going to do, they're going to make sure you clean it up correctly too. So that wasn't in place a long, long time ago. I can tell you there's more wells drilled through the aquifer for saltwater disposal wells or everything else that you could even count. Did they turn your aquifer into salt water? If they did, there's plenty of experts out there. They can take the urine out of an astronaut and they can drink it. They can do that. They can take salt water and make it into drinking water. So you think they can't clean any metals or anything out of water? Yes, they can. So there's some ways of doing it. You got to hold the feet to the fire to make sure they're responsible for it. And that's what I hear from you guys up here. So I appreciate you very much. So our issues may be different there. I was asked to go to that meeting. I said, no, I'm not, because I'm not going to go talk or worry about or try to convince anybody from other parishes not to do or to do. But I am interested in the development and the industry in Cameron Parish, because I want to leave this a lot better place than I came into when I leave here. So thank you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you,
Sharon, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rowland, you come back up.
Yes. Yes, sir. One of the things talking about finances, that's one of the reasons why we tried to get a bill, and we do have a bill. Well, I think it may be coming up Monday. You know, we shot high, you always shoot high, you know you're not gonna get that, but we shot at $8 a ton. Off of the $85, but we thought that we might end up with a $4, maybe a ton deal, because the fact is, there is no real money for the storage for the parishes, or, you know, and the way it is in Allen Parish is that in most parishes, see, this is what got us think about. The pipelines, a regular pipeline is usually assessed, and the assessor, was that the assessor?
Yes, sir.
And he probably can clarify this, because I'm not sure how it exactly works, but a regular pipeline is usually assessed for 26 years.
Yes.
And then the tax commission went on the 13 years on these CO2 lines?
Yes, went 13 years, yes.
Yes, sir. So,
That was one of the things we had to negotiate with, so that we could get a better value on the plant itself. We had to negotiate to a 13-year life on the pipeline.
had a sound for Drake too, I think.
But, yeah.
So, I mean, everything it looks like, you know, they asking. There's so much money involved in this, but the parishes, I mean, you know, it seems like that's what we have to find. That's why we went to pushing for do it per ton, per metric ton for parishes. Because if they're gonna devalue those lines and if, you know, we're just trying to make sure that parishes receive something for the stores. Because we really, you know, it's just fair, it's just right that parishes receive this kind of, you know, if we ask them, I know, look, it's risk and everything. I feel every day we walk out the doors, that's right, it's risk. But I don't think you can ask parishes and the people to take risk with a new, you know, they don't say it's new technology, but the way it is, without our parishes receiving something financially. You know, one of the things too, I heard the gentleman say, and I'm gonna tell you what, you guys got some good folks out here to work with. I heard more today from Scepter or whatever the company's name is than I heard and anybody else that we've been dealing with. But, you know, the thing about the plume, I'm just gonna leave this to, you know, the plume. Like, when I heard him say this, it dawned on me a while ago, because they said one of these wells is gonna be a 10-year deal, you know, that it'd be filled up in 10 years. But then we find out that they're not gonna check where the plume actually is going. Where is it going? But every 5 years. Now, I heard some discussion the other day that it would be 3 years. But that's one of the things that I asked them to do is that please check that plume the first 2 or 3, I mean, not just 5 years, because you won't be checked it, but in a 10-year period of time too, when you finish filling up that plume, well, it might be down there in California somewhere. You know, on somebody and all the people's land, you know, that might not be getting no value for their land, their spore space and stuff. And the thing about it is why it's so important to know that is because if that CO2 plume does go under your property and you don't know about it, it's probably gonna strain your minerals because you can never go at this point in time. It would cost so much money to drill through that CO2 on your own property. So that's why it's important that they check where that plume is. And keep it on their properties and not really go on to somebody else's property without without them getting the benefit also. So, and the other thing I heard, and I'm sitting down, and this is the thing that they told us, that they're flying over with that drone. And my question to them was because they, with that equipment, they trying to pick up the metal. Well, my point is, we have some old wells out there that's been out there since the 30s, 40s, or something. It's way old. I said, what if there's no metal there to protect it no more? But we got to open up. And they said, well, there is a slight possibility of that. So, you know, we just got to work through from A to Z on this stuff and make sure our local governments, y'all doing the right thing, asking questions, getting answers. And I appreciate everybody here today that I learned some stuff. Every time I come to a meeting, I learn a little more. Thank y'all for the invite, Mr. Sonny.
I want y'all to think about this, include these wells when you're going through this legislation and see if we can't push our state government to come in and do their job. We need to make sure those things are being and cleaned up.
Well, yes, sir. Now, they promised me that where these plumes are gonna be, that, you know, our natural resources is gonna make sure that those wells, because we don't have but 1,100 or 1,300 wells in our parish, and most of them on the south end of our parish. We already know that we don't have the right cement and the right plugs to handle CO2. We know that. So that's why we've been pressing on them so hard to make sure that those abandoned wells get the right plug, the right cement and everything before we do this. So we're working with, but I just want to appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you coming.
Guys, I just wanted to tell you on the models, that they modeled what happened in Satoshi, and I'd like to share that with y'all. It's pretty accurate. Okay, it costs a lot of money to do these models around communities, and I know that's not why, they just didn't do it for whatever reason. And they should have modeled that because that model is pretty doggone accurate. There's a couple of types of models, but it showed you the behavior of that CO2, where it went down in the low areas and the ridges was less concentrated. And boy, that sure would have been useful to the locals to have that information. But I just want to share that and just to let the company know, and I know y'all know this. I'm not here for their project. I'm here because y'all are my neighbors. I'm not here I don't want any confusion about that. I didn't come because of their specific project. I came about CO2 in general. CO2, just to clear the record, as a taxpayer, is a scam. It's a boondoggle. 45 Republican congressmen wrote a letter yesterday to the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, and we're as red as it gets, folks. Okay, I want to clear that up too, how we vote to eliminate this. 45 congressmen. So they said in their exact words, if we go through with this, we're hypocritical. Because we ran on the platform that we was not going to do this. And I'm holding their feet to the fire, y'all. My congressman is Speaker of the House, but I just want to share that with y'all. I feel comfortable with you guys with the safety of this and what y'all are doing. More so the questions y'all ask than anywhere I've been. And that's really why I'm here, because I know you guys know a lot about this stuff. And I grew up with my police troops, but they don't know anything about this. You see, guys, we just all got to come, we got to work together. And that's the reason I'm here. That's why I'm here. But I wanted to share that with y'all. Yes, I'm 100 again, because I don't want my grandkids $1 trillion in debt from a scam. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, I don't want to sit here and call it a scam, but for lack of better words, it's probably the closest consideration you can get. But we're not here to discuss that, but it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about today. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and if it gets shut down, then we've been all this discussion is moved anyway, because if it's 45, few credits go away, the money's not there to do the projects anyway, so.
But I wanted to make sure that I'm not here to politic and get rid of it. I'm here for what y'all are doing. But as far as where I stand, that's where I stand. And I don't know any doubt. I'm not fighting this specific company.
Right.
I'm fighting putting carbon dioxide.
And what that said is, like I said, they're working within the business model that they have to work with it. Even if it's a scam, it's still, they want to hold your foot at the fire to be carbon neutral. They're trying to work with them, and we're trying to do the best we can to support them in that process, but keep people safe. So, with that said, we're going to ask for more questions. If there's anybody else that has any questions. Is there any more cards, Mike, Ron?
No, sir.
Any questions that have been asked today that people are concerned about with CO2 injection or this well permit that's coming up Monday? Okay, if there's no more questions, that's all I have, Mr. Ron. Oh, I would like to say this. I have this paper right here. This is an environmental assessment from the Allen Parish Group. It's available on our website. There's some really good reading in this. There's some deep technical stuff that you can't find anywhere else. I'd advise you, if you want to get on Allen Parish Police Jury website and get this and read it.
Question?
Yeah, I'm good.
Appreciate everybody's attendance and participation. Thank y'all.
Thank you.